Okay, so now in our previous video we added some records to our MySQL database, and now we want to see those records. We want to see the results of well, in our case we have a database called Friends, and we want to we've added some new friends, and we want to take a look at, we want to list them. Let's say that we want to list them. Okay, so here I've got a single button. It says show DB database records, show DB records, and I've gone in and I've added a few more records here. And so how do we do that? Well, what we want to do is we want to press this button, and of course there's other things you can do, but you know, well, you'll get what I mean. There's other things that you could do in terms of the presentation and layout. You could select all sorts of different things, but this is just the basics, right? Okay, so here we have a SQL, we have a variable, and we have assigned to it a SQL select statement. Okay? And here we say select. That means take out or grab, get from the database. And then we have this star sign here. And that is like a wildcard, and that says select everything. Okay? From this table, the table Friends, right? Okay, and our DB connection is going to establish which database we're going to. We're going to test database, right? All right, so there we put that command or instruction that we're going to issue to the database into a variable. Now we create a MySQL database object, MySQL improved, right? Database object, and we issue a query. A query in English, the word query just means to make a request or ask a question. Okay, and the parameter we pass is this string here, and it will return a result object. So it will grab all of this stuff. Okay, we'll grab it all and it will put it back in our result object. Okay, and so our result object exists. We go down through the page. PHP sends out this HTML. Now we check. All right, has the button been pressed? You know, we could check other ways. We just want to make sure, is this a post request? Okay. And in my previous videos I explained, in this series I explained, you know, what is this function isSet? Essentially it just says, is a particular variable in existence? Okay, because if it's not, we don't want to execute all this code. If you're unsure of what I mean by that, just go back through my videos. They build on each other. They build on themselves sequentially. So now we're going to use a while loop, and we're going to loop through that result set. Okay? We have a set or group, a bunch of data. Okay? And what is this? I think really here, this is the key. It's going to serve two purposes. One, here we're invoking a method, right? This is an object, and we use this notation here. We use this symbol, a dash and a pointer, to invoke this method, fetch associative array. Okay? That means fetch an associative array. Okay? And fetch in English, I know there's some people here watching this whose native language is in English. So fetch means to, in English it means to go get or to grab or bring back. Okay, so it says go get or bring back an associative array. Okay, so here we have an associative array, the post array, and And here we have a string value execute that's associated with something. Just like this is an associative array, here we have this request method that it can contain post or it can contain get. All right, but in ours, our associative array will be things like first name, and maybe first name will be John, maybe first name will be David, maybe first name will be Steve. And in this associative array, okay, so what it will do for each record, I'm going to loop through each record, and I'll show you exactly why that will happen in just a second. But when it fetches an associative array, it fetches one row. Okay, one row. Here's a row. It has a friend ID, and here the data inside the box, remember how I used that metaphor, that analogy of a train where you have different boxcars? Well, in the friend boxcar, okay, we have a 1. In the first name, for this row, for this associative array here, first name box, there'll be John. In the last name box, there'll be Smith. In the city, there'll be Rio. Okay? And so, remember, with a while loop, all of this will execute here. All of this will execute if what is between this parentheses and this parentheses results, or excuse me, I won't use the word twice, evaluates to true. So if it fetches the first row and we assign it to a variable called row, you could have chosen a different variable, right? You could have chosen something else. You could have said you could call it my row. It wouldn't matter, right? I just called it row because it helps me remember. It helps me think about what it is. So it grabs this first row, right? And it assigns it to row. And so what in here, essentially, if we have a value, okay, PHP will say, well, it may not be what this line of code is handing me. It may not be exactly true. It may not be exactly false. But it is what in programming we call truthy. It's kind of funny. Or falsy. Okay? And what that is the value is not empty. The value is not null. The value is not undefined. Okay? All right, so it grabs something, and there is some data, there is some variable there. So it says, okay, well, I consider that true, so we're going to execute this line of code. All right? Then, this particular method, once it comes back around and it is called again, naturally, this is how this particular method of this object works, fetch associative array. And if you want to look at what this, you can, in this IDE, in this integrated development environment, if you hit function F1, you can actually get a description of that code. Okay? All right? And it's the same in PHP 7. Okay, if you want to do that. But at any rate, it's going to come back up, and on the next round, this particular method will naturally bump itself down to the next record. And then after it returns it, it'll bump it to the next one, and bump it to the next one. But it calls them one at a time. It fetches them one at a time. And so when it comes back and it calls fetch, and there are none left, okay, there are none left, we've gone through all of them, we have looped through all of them, it's going to return a value that PHP is going to say, oh, now this is false. Okay, this is false. And it will stop. All right, so now I think you got that. So what do? Here's my associative array. So we call row. Remember how we access values in an array. We take our variable and we put an open square bracket it's square, and we have a closed square bracket. And with an associative array, we're going to have a string to refer to the boxcar. Okay? And so what I did was I concatenated, right, this dot operator right here. What it does is it concatenates. And to concatenate means to bring together or to paste together. It really means to join or combine two things together. Okay? And then I just took a space because I wanted to create a little space to make it more readable. Then I grab the email portion and the city portion, etc. And at the very end, I threw in a line break. Okay? I threw in a line break. So, show DB records. So here it goes to John, my email, Rio, David. Okay, now here you can see that it is properly rendered. It is properly displayed, our Unicode character set. Now back in the database, I forget what needs to be done. I don't always work, up on my production environment is where I'm more concerned with being able to edit these things. And quite frankly, I always have a user interface to manage these things, and I give the client a user interface to manage and edit their local Chinese or the Chinese names for products, Chinese descriptions, etc. And so it's never an issue. Okay, so all right, so now there's a few things, you guys, I want to note. There's a few things I want you guys to remember. Just a couple things here. And let's go back here. I remembered it before. Right when you do an insertion, when you add records, I'm kind of going back to the last video. You need to be very, very careful that for right now, you should copy my code exactly. If I were you, I would just copy it word for word, letter for letter, and it will help your memory to type it in, okay? If you want, just to make 2 records, all right? Don't just have a first name and a last name. It'll be easier to debug. It will be easier to debug if there's a problem. But when you're dealing with the database, I guarantee you 60 or 70% of the time, if there's an error, okay? Here, I'm going to show you here. Let's go over, if there's an error, it's usually because you have typed something incorrectly. Okay, almost always. So let's do a little trick. So here we have first name, first name, first name, first name. Wow, you come back over to the database here, and if we look at the structure, if you have spelled it in the database differently than you spell it here, 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 or here, just one error in any of those will screw the whole thing up. Let's just say I said first name, okay? And I screwed that up. What's going to happen? Error, okay? Bam, right? Undefined index, all right? At this line 14, we go down there, we find line 14. Here we are. So this is an undefined index. It said, okay, the post array should contain a variable named first name, but it didn't. All right? That sort of error will occur a lot. You will find it occurs a lot, and I know it will happen a few times for you. Maybe not on the first try, but as you go on and you develop applications, I guarantee you that's going to happen from time to time, okay? That's going to happen from time to time. Okay, so there we go. Boom. And so we have some craziness here. Okay. And what else? There was something else. Oh yeah, in PHP myadmin, let's say I wanted to change this to Sally. You can just click on that, Sally, and then click over here, one row affected. Of course, you can grab a row and then delete it if you want. Let's see here. Okay, I think you get that. All right. So at any rate, you guys just be very patient with yourselves. Be very patient with yourselves when you start off. The first 6 months of programming this, well, let's say the first year is by far the most difficult. After about a year, it starts to get a lot easier and it starts to get much more fun. So make sure you push, 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 and continue slowly on just a little bit each day, just a little bit every day for at least a year. Give yourself that promise, make yourself that promise that I will continue for at least a year, and you will be very, very surprised. Do at least that much.